I suppose I would argue that trading is a mixture of an art and a science. And it's that by which I mean that there are some traders like myself who are better off trading 100% systematically, because to me it's 100% a science. So by science I mean the application of rules around things like risk management, position sizing, and then some basic understanding of the sort of return factors that drive markets and how those can be exploited, as a sort of diversified portfolio of return stroke risk factors. And then, everything beyond that is really just refining that. It's not really about the kind of what I call the artistic side, which is these people, and they do exist, I believe they exist, who can kind of see what's going on in markets and sort of discover unknown patterns and make genuine forecasts about what's going to happen, and basically do stuff that a simple set of trading rules can't do. But I think it's a bit unrealistic for the average person to go straight from knowing nothing to being, a kind of, let's call it a purely artistic trader, because it's extremely unlikely that well, first of all, I believe the number of people with that gift is pretty small, to be honest. It's a very small fraction of the population. Secondly, you can be the best predictor of market direction in the world, the best artist in the world, but you still need to follow basic rules around position and risk management. Otherwise, basically, you're just going to either blow up or bleed your account dry through trading too frequently, even if in the end you're actually right in making the right decisions. So I believe that basically the path most people should follow is use a simple trading system that's got the right elements in place in terms of position risk management, holding period, reducing trading costs, all those things that I believe are important, not overfitted. I learn how to use that system and learn the way it's working, and then gradually try and introduce elements of perhaps more discretionary artistic elements into that. So sort of say, well, yeah, I've got this hunch that I think this is going to happen in this market, so let me put on a position on that. It'll only be a small part of my trading system. Let's see how that works out. That's worked out well. Let me try another one and another one. And maybe after a few years, and realistically it will take a few years, you actually have strong kind of evidence that you're actually quite good at calling the direction of the market. And then you could move to what I would call sort of semi-automated system, where basically you've got the kind of mixture of art and science. You've got the scientific side of sizing your positions and managing the risk of those positions, deciding when to close them, combined with, obviously I think quite a rare intuitive understanding of what direction the market should go in. Most people aren't going to end up in that place. Most people, I think, will probably find after they've tried to make a few calls in the market, and if they're measuring their performance rigorously, will think, well, actually, I'm not that good at this. Benchmarking myself properly, my results are no better than chance or worse than chance. Therefore, I should just go back to running a simple trading system. And I think probably for 95 to 99% of people, that's what they should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe like you, or maybe like many people when they start, I was way too busy about to make millions trading to consider a simple, straightforward system, right? But I think what I absolutely love about your writing is, and the way you put together a system, is the simplicity and the completeness. And that's one thing I think is really, really important, is because when you start, there's so many things going on. I think you have kind of no chance of keeping track of it all kind of in your head. As you said, being the artist, painting and pulling different colors is just too much. But when we talk about, I guess, an end-to-end system, trading system, what are the kind of core components you'd need to have a robust trading system?
Well, in its simplest terms, you start off with some kind of input that you think is going to predict the direction of the price in the future, right? That's ultimately what you want to do. And I would advise, to begin with at least, using the simplest possible thing, which is literally just the price itself. And a pattern that seems to work well in a lot of markets for the sort of holding periods that I believe that most people should be focusing on, which is, let's say, holding trades for between, say, a few weeks and a couple of months. Any faster than that, and depending on the market you're in, you're probably going to be paying trading costs that are potentially too high. So I believe you should start focusing on a slower system. For that sort of time horizon, most instruments exhibit momentum, essentially. So in other words, if the price has gone up in the last couple of months, it'll probably go up for the next couple of months. And you don't necessarily need anything more sophisticated than that. I mean, there are millions of ways of measuring momentum, and I use ones that are a bit more complicated than that, but not because they necessarily are better at predicting the direction of markets better than a simple system like what's it done for the last 2 months, but more because they have nicer behavior with respect to trading costs and so on and so forth. So then you've got a way of predicting the direction of the markets. Essentially something that will tell you when you should be opening a position, whether that should be a long position, a short position, and so on and so forth. And then the next stage obviously is to actually decide how big that position should be. And there's a lot of inputs into that calculation. So people use crude things like, oh yeah, you should put 1% of your capital in every trade. Well, 1% may be fine, but it may also be too much or nowhere near enough, depending on a lot of factors, like, for example, the sort of number of instruments you're trading, your holding period again. So the faster you're trading, the smaller each bet should be because you're making more of them in a given time. So, the sort of expectations of your performance in the future. And generally speaking, I'd advise people to have quite pessimistic expectations of what their performance should be in the future. So now you know whether you're going to go long or short, and you know how big your position is going to be. I kind of missed out a step actually, which is deciding what you're actually going to trade, what you're actually going to focus on. I would say again, the decision there should be, it's mostly for retail investors around trying to play off two factors against each other. One is costs. You obviously want to trade as cheaply as possible, because the more then when at least you're not kind of paying a sort of tax to the markets every time you trade that's going to suck all your returns away. And the other element is also the fact that you, in some markets, particularly in the futures markets, the sort of minimum position sizes can be quite big. And there's a sort of annoying inverse relationship in the sense that the cheaper something is to trade, the more likely it is that only sort of bigger investors can afford to have it. So it's finding that balance, which is quite difficult. So you know what you're going to trade, you know the sign of your position, you know how big your position is going to be. The next step obviously is to actually buy or sell the instrument, take the position on. And that isn't that important actually, because if you are trading relatively slowly, it's not really going to matter if your execution isn't 100% brilliant. Whereas obviously if you're a high frequency trader, then your execution has to be 100% perfect. Otherwise you won't make any money. And then the final element is, well, how long do I hold this thing for? When do I close it? So, and that's actually probably one of the parts of trading that really does need to be, again, systematized, if not automated, either through the use of an explicit stop loss or doing what I do, which essentially is to automatically reduce my position as I've got less conviction in it. So yeah, that's sort of the end-to-end life cycle of a trade. So there's a number of different decisions you need to make there, and ideally each of them should be quantified and systematized so that you're not having to make them with sort of human instincts, which can lead you to do things like, hold on to losing positions for too long because you kind of, fallen in love with the trade. You should, set yourself a stop loss and stick to it.